I think honestly 20s was the most fun. Just like while I was producing it, I would find myself just having these moments of like, I'm creating a bop. Like this is a song that I would listen to, and that's pretty cool. So yeah, I think that 20s was really fun, and the song Quarter Life Crisis was also a lot of fun because when I was writing that song and then I was kind of bringing it into a production stage, I had two different versions of how I wanted it to sound in my head, and I wasn't sure which one I was going to go with. So there was one that was more in my comfort zone, and then there was one that was kind of out of my comfort zone. And I ended up going with the one that was out of my comfort zone. So that was a lot of fun to kind of experiment with some new sounds and techniques. And I'm excited for you guys to hear that one too. Yes. um, I learned a lot making this album. I had never made like a full collection of music before. I mean, I guess I did put an album out on SoundCloud when I graduated high school called Senior Confessions, and I did not know how to produce very well yet. That was all in GarageBand. So this was the first time I was doing anything fully produced in Logic. I'm mastering the songs and everything like a professional. So I learned a whole ton about music production, about kind of what kinds of sounds I'm interested in terms of production. I think when I was writing Heroes and when I was writing Keep You Close, those were two songs that I wrote inspired by therapy sessions. And writing those songs was definitely cathartic. Like those were two moments where I was sitting down and kind of realizing that I wasn't as alone as I was convincing myself that I was. So writing those two songs definitely helped me figure out a lot about myself. Good question. Yes, lots, lots of stuff didn't make it. So, for those who don't know the industry lingo, an EP is basically a collection of more than one song that's less than a half hour long. And then anything that's collectively more than a half hour long is a standard album or LP. And I wanted to keep it to an EP length. So in this case, that meant that it was 6 songs long. So there were a lot of songs that I wanted to include that I just felt didn't quite fit. For example, Love Song to My Friends, if anyone's familiar with that one. I wrote that one for Chris Scales' class last year, and it was included in the ARCA graduation ceremony, and we put it up on YouTube and everything. But it, to put it bluntly, is too happy of a song for this album. This song I wanted to very much be capturing how I feel with my frustrations, with my anxieties, kind of in all of my uncertainties. I wanted it to kind of capture this quarter life crisis. And I felt like Love Song for My Friends didn't quite fit that, but I do want to include it in something someday. So that was one of the big ones that was hard to not include in this project. I'm scrolling through the chat now. So, for those of you who don't know, Chris Scales is the professor who was overseeing my senior thesis this semester. So, I'm really happy to have him here. Hi, Chris. And yeah, he's saying he argued for Love Song to be a hidden track on the EP, which is true. He fought pretty hard for that one, but at the end of the day, I said no. I'm sorry. I gotta say, honestly, as much as I would like to say something on this project because this is an event for this project, I think Princess of Social Distance is my favorite project that I've written. Like, I think I wrote that one very quickly. I think that I sat down, I had this idea in my mind of if it weren't for you, I might have enjoyed this a little bit. And I was like, that's fun. That's a fun little take on this pandemic. I sat down and I wrote that whole thing. And that was a really fun song to me, and it's also fun for me to listen to. I think that it's a really fun concept. So I think that's my favorite. Thank you for asking. That's another good question. Both of my parents are writers, so a lot of my upbringing was surrounding words. So that's usually the first step in my songwriting process is usually words first, and then I'll come up with some kind of melody, some kind of tune that goes with those words after the fact. It's always hard for me to choose just one. The first one that comes to mind, okay, no, it's two. The first two that come to mind are Sparks Fly by Taylor Swift and then Treacherous, also by Taylor Swift. Those two songs just really resonated with me from the start. I remember when Sparks Fly came out, I like listened to it, I wore it out. I was afraid that I was going to get tired of it, and I never did. And I think that's a sign of a good song. And then Treacherous is another one that I just love. And I really like the way that she does harmonies, like a vocal texture in the background. And that's something that I really tried to emulate a lot on this project. So I am a Swiftie, guilty as charged. I would argue I did. That is Love Song to My Friends, I would say. So whenever that gets released, I mean, you can listen to it on YouTube right now, whenever you want, but whenever that gets released, that one's for you. I mean, I think it definitely is a different process writing for a specific project as opposed to just, putting it out there. I think I wrote 20s and Can It Be You, which is the last track on the album. I think that those were the only ones that I wrote before I decided what the album was going to be. And I feel like those two kind of set the tone for this theme of growing up in a really difficult time under difficult circumstances. So then going from there, like all of the songs that I wrote were kind of related to that theme. So like all of the songs that I've written since starting this project have been specifically for this project, which is an interesting way to write that I haven't necessarily written before. I really like making track lists. So I think I knew from the beginning that I wanted to start with some more upbeat songs and then move into kind of the more down tempo ones. And I played around with it a lot, but I knew I wanted to open with either Quarter Life Crisis, the song, or 20s, and then end with Can It Be You? And then I kind of filled in the blanks there. But I like to arrange my songs like thematically. So for me, when you're listening to it, it kind of goes through a narrative. Like it starts kind of setting the scene of what's going on in my life. And it starts with maybe some frustration, some anxiety. And then as you move through the EP, it talks about some more vulnerable things about, figuring out who you are, figuring out kind of where you sit, and also figuring out your relationships with the people around you. So I think it kind of moves in that direction. That's the way that I tried to do it. I think this one is definitely poppy. I tried to influence a lot with bedroom pop specifically because this is an album that I created basically in my bedroom. I didn't want to set unrealistic goals for myself, but at the same time, especially with 20s, I was definitely referencing some bigger production tracks, and I'm happy with how it turned out. But yeah, I think the sonic feel of the EP, in my opinion, is definitely a little bit more alternative, poppy. I tried to make it fun, even when the content matter wasn't always. But another thing that I really was focusing on with this one is the background vocals. And I saw someone commenting that they really liked the backing vocals in 20s. And I was talking about how I was kind of basing those off of Treacherous. That's something that I really focused on was the vocal production. So there's a lot of vocal production in this project. Honestly, isolation. I can't write songs. I take that back. I was going to say I can't write songs with other people, but that's not true because I have written songs with other people. But usually when I get an idea for a song, the best thing I can do is just kind of go into a room or a corner or something and just like flesh it out in my mind by myself until I've got a steady like verse or chorus or something, just like a good chunk of song. And so I think, yeah, the best way that I get into the creative headspace is to just kind of like be by myself and try not to get distracted and just kind of sit down and do it. Already mentioned Taylor Swift. Yeah, she's the reason that I write songs. Like I watched a documentary about her when I was like 10 or so, and like I was like, wow, that's something you can do for a living. I'm gonna do that. So definitely her. I'm also really inspired by like Lord and Troye Sivan and Broods and MXM Tune and a lot of pop artists, I guess. But those are some that come to mind. I'm sure that I'm forgetting a lot of people, but uh, those are some big influences. I wanted it to be kind of in this theme of having a party to celebrate the quarter life crisis, because I feel like that's kind of the theme of the album is like, yeah, we're having a crisis, but we're kind of like dancing our way through it. And so I decided on the main album artwork first and kind of had this idea of, okay, I'll get a banner and maybe some balloons and a party hat and like all that like generic party stuff. But instead of having like a really fun party, I'm like not having a good time. So like if you see the cover, I'm just kind of sitting there, kind of unsatisfied by everything. So I wanted the 20s cover to be kind of a version of that. And so I thought a birthday cake would be a good idea that kind of goes along with it. So I went and I got a cake tin and I got the cake stuff. I wasn't expecting the cake to taste good because I just wanted it to look good, and it actually tasted pretty good. But after I tasted it, I was like, actually, this looks a lot cooler than the full cake. So that's when I decided to use the picture of a partially eaten cake. It's not even like nicely cut out or anything. It's just got a fork in there, and I took a few bites out of it. So that was the inspiration behind the cake. It was, I think it was literally called like white cake. I don't know. I just I knew I wanted white frosting, and so I wanted to make sure that like the cake didn't, I don't know, get through the white frosting. That's a tricky one. Like I said, I really do like the lyrical process. That's definitely the first and foremost part for me in terms of songwriting. I think maybe one of my favorite lyrics is in Can't Just Be Okay. I say rice-a-roni and sweatpants, canceling my plans with everyone, and watching the same old show 20 times in a row for fun. The same old show is Parks and Recreation. And I definitely have been eating a lot of rice-a-roni and wearing a lot of sweatpants. And I feel like that just kind of sums it all up. I think that's my favorite lyric, at least from this project. Yeah, so the lyrics do generally come first. And I think my process is that I come up with an idea that I want to write about a lot of the time. And then I kind of play with words in my head to see what would sound good, like maybe trying to come up with rhymes, trying to come up with some kind of way to make the words a little bit more artful. And then usually during that process, I come up with some kind of rhythm and generally some kind of melody. A lot of the times I'll change the melody after the fact. I just kind of want to get something out. But definitely a big part of my process is just using the voice memos app on my phone and like making sure that when I do get an idea, I record it somewhere. Because when I first started writing songs when I was 8, I would just write the lyrics down on a page and just remember how they sounded. And then after a while, I was like, what if I forget how it sounds though? Then what? Like, I'm not writing down notation or anything, I'm just writing words. So, definitely having some kind of device to record my thoughts on is essential in the process. So, yeah, I would say I come up with a melody pretty shortly after I come up with some kind of lyrical content. I don't think I necessarily have a favorite key to write songs in, but I do like playing guitar in G. I don't know, my guitar skills aren't like immaculate, so I know enough chords and then I'll put the capo on there if it's in a key I can't do. I've got small hands, so bar chords aren't really my thing. But yeah, G is a good one because there aren't very many bar chords. I think, okay, modified answer. I think C. I write a lot of songs in C because my voice fits it well. So that's my new answer. Yeah, so I use Logic, which is basically like a fancier version of GarageBand. and you can get a lot more done with it than you can in GarageBand. There's a lot more ways to customize what you're sounding like. So that's really been the biggest thing. I really switched to Logic and never turned back. There's no reason to go back to GarageBand at this point. I think it might be Quarter Life Crisis because that one's got a lot of vocal textures in it. So each vocal texture has like two melody vocals, two high harmony vocals, and two low harmony vocals. So there's 6 of them total. And then I've got like a couple different parts like that. And then I've got like guitar and piano and then the main vocals. So there's a lot. I think that one might have the most layers if I had to guess. No. Chris Scales taught me Logic. I took a production class with him my freshman year, and that's where I was introduced to Logic because I had GarageBand already. I had done Senior Confessions and produced it in GarageBand. And yeah, once I learned what you can do with Logic, I think my parents gave it to me for Christmas or something like that. And so yeah, I definitely did not teach myself Logic. Chris taught me a lot of it. And then I also took the same class last year, but with a different course number, so it was okay. And so that also taught me a lot more about it as well. I do like Google techniques sometimes if you're looking to get started, but I would definitely say that Chris was the biggest contributor to my Logic knowledge. Surprisingly, no, not a single time. And I appreciate that. I think I've kind of talked about my process a little bit, but writing a song in terms of length can take anywhere from like a half hour to multiple months. Like I said, I like to, when I get an idea, just sit down and like do it and just write the whole thing because that way I can really harness whatever creative energy I'm feeling. I can harness whatever emotion I'm trying to convey in the most accuracy, I guess. So I try to get it all done in one sitting. But that being said, sometimes I'll get stuck. A lot of the times I get stuck on the last line of the second verse. And I know that's very specific, but I put a lot of pressure on that line because I feel like it's kind of like a punchline to a joke because it's the last line of a verse in most of my songs, and so it's got to be something like significant. So sometimes I get too caught up in trying to make it significant, make it have a lot of meaning, and then I can't think of anything, so then I'll kind of push it to the side and I'll come back to it maybe the next day or something. But even if I do finish a song in one sitting, I'll usually come back to it and modify it a little bit. Like 20s is one that I probably wrote in a day or two, but then as I was recording it and as I was going through the mixing process, I decided that I wanted to change the meaning of it a little bit. So I did end up changing some of the lyrics and I like them a lot more now. So yeah, revision is something that I am teaching myself to be more comfortable with. Definitely. Yeah, I mean, at the beginning, so I wrote Princess of Social Distance, like at the very, very beginning of all of this. But then I didn't really write much for a while because I was like, what am I going to write about? Like, it wasn't necessarily that I didn't have anything to write about. It was more so just that, living through these times is very draining. Living through what we're living through takes a lot out of you. So I didn't have a lot of the same creative energy that maybe I usually do. But once I started writing for this project and I started to get more momentum, that definitely helped me get out some ideas that I had been wanting to convey. And it was definitely very cathartic at moments to verbalize these feelings that I was having and make them in a format that maybe other people could relate to, and maybe it would help them get through the difficult situations as well. I would love to do a music video one day. This lyric video for 20s is the first lyric video that I've done for myself. And so that's like the closest step I've done. I did do a lyric video for This Is My Home in 2015, I want to say. So that is a music video, in my opinion. But yeah, I would love to shoot some kind of music video for this project. That would be awesome. Yeah, 20s comes out tonight. The EP is gonna come out May 28th. And what's next for me is hopefully playing more venues, maybe doing more virtual concerts like this, just kind of for fun. But yeah, I mean, I just got an email today about playing an in-person venue, which is really exciting to start getting back to that. I've got my second dose for the vaccine scheduled soon, so that's also exciting. So getting back to the live music scene will definitely be an exciting next step. And yeah, I mean, just over the summer, I'm looking forward to being able to really put all my efforts into my music business because this is something that I've been doing for a while now. I mean, I started my YouTube page when I was like 14, and it's been something that I've been kind of doing in between school this whole time. And I'm really excited. I'm really excited to not be in school anymore. In a sense, I'm also terrified to not be in school anymore, but it means that I will be able to dedicate the time that I want to be able to dedicate to my music. And I'll be able to really go all out with that one. So yeah, so that would mean having time for shooting music videos, having time for maybe collaborating with more artists, maybe putting out more work, all that good stuff. So yeah, that's what's next for Sophia Dove. So I think that's a good stopping point for the evening. Yeah, I'm really excited for 20s to come out tonight. So yeah, midnight Eastern. Tomorrow you can listen to it on all your streaming services. The lyric video will be up on YouTube. And yeah, look forward to Quarter Life Crisis, the EP, coming out soon. And yeah, thank you guys so much for coming to this. This was a lot of fun, and we should do this again sometime. Thank you guys so much. I really appreciate you coming.